Slovakia Untold is a podcast brought to you by Slovakia Travel and Zulf Hayat Khan. I am back for a brand new episode of Slovakia Untold in partnership with Slovakia Travel and Visit Slovakia. This episode will continue my exploration into the lives of those who have chosen to make Slovakia their home. And in keeping with the first episode, I am now featuring women who will tell their stories in the spirit of equality, of course. And now I can go to my very first guest. Would you kindly introduce yourself for us?
Sure thing. Hi, Solv. Hi, Slovakia and beyond. My name is Olivia Blanchard, and I come from France, more precisely from the French Caribbean. So I had the luck of growing up on an island. I'm living in Slovakia for about 4 years now, and I'm really happy to call it my home.
Tell me, you said you live in the French Caribbean. Whereabouts in the French Caribbean?
So I've been actually in between a few islands. I was born in Martinique. Then I lived for quite some time in Saint Martin. It's the famous one where they have this crazy airport, the Juliana Princess Airport. And then I was living in Guadeloupe.
Wow. So that's quite a shift from the Caribbean islands to find yourself in the heart of Central Europe and Slovakia. So tell me, I mean, being a student aside, I know that you've worked with GlobeSec, you're an entrepreneur, you're a PhD student. We'll come on to that in a minute. What on earth brought you to Slovakia?
I guess it's a story old as time. I came here because of love, but also because of opportunity. I have to say Slovakia has much more to offer than people realize.
That's interesting. So yeah, it's normally the men that come to Slovakia for love, but it's interesting to see a lady who's also done that. But opportunity, you mentioned opportunity, and in my previous podcast, lots of people talked about opportunities, certainly in developing regional tourism. We had religious tourism mentioned as an area of opportunity. Infrastructure was another area where people were talking about. What specifically in terms of opportunity have you noticed?
Well, I would say first thing is that when you're, for instance, a young graduate, there's a lot of jobs open. There's definitely a lot of multinational corporations which are based here, and they actually employ an insane amount of foreigners. So, for instance, in France, in Spain, in Italy, there might not be so many entry jobs available. So this is something to consider. And I think it's also really worth to think about it as a land of opportunities for entrepreneurs.
So an entrepreneurial hub as well. So you worked at GlobeSec for a while, and I know that you're interested in the area of international relations, public policy, those kind of things. Central Europe and Slovakia can play an important role in this, do you think?
Absolutely. I think that this region has the possibility to steer EU policy, possibly regional policy, in a strong direction to show an example of what can be done.
And I asked everybody this who's come on my podcast, your family, everybody that you've met outside of Slovakia, did they ever think, oh my God, Olivia is now living in Slovakia? Did they, in their wildest imagination, ever think that you'd end up in Slovakia?
Pretty sure that no. And as a matter of fact, I believe that everybody thought it would be a phase, that I'll come here for 3 months.
Like ripped jeans.
Like ripped jeans, you know, rock music. They thought it would just...
Emo.
Side parts and all. But actually, very much for about a couple of years, I always heard, okay, so when are you coming home? And I always had to say, it's my home.
So talking of it being your home now, I know that you're going to explore your PhD and perhaps travel. You're now studying your PhD at EUBA, right?
That's right.
And now you're exploring the opportunity to travel. But you see Slovakia as your home forever?
Maybe not forever, but for quite some more time, I would say. I mean, I've already been here for 4 years, and I've had the opportunity to grasp a good knowledge of this country and the different regions. But
it gets under your skin, doesn't it?
It does.
Infectious.
You see you get accustomed to the warmth, to the slivovica and the poppy seeds in all the dishes, and you start to have some
good feelings about
it.
Okay, so you brought up culture. I was going to lean into culture anyway. Food. I mean, you're French, or you're French Caribbean. French are very typically snobbish about their cuisine, escoffier, mirepoix, bain-marie. All the expressions for cooking have originated in France. It's the home of food origin. What did you first think of Slovak cuisine when you arrived?
Okay, please do not cancel me for this. But I really did not enjoy it. It took me quite some time to get accustomed to it, but I have to say now I do have some favorites.
Which are?
Cesnačka, but so the garlic soup, but not the creamy one, the brothy one.
Okay. I like vivar.
Vivar.
Yeah.
I never had it actually because I don't eat meat, but I see it's a crowd pleaser. And maybe it's worth to mention the burta.
Burta.
Yeah.
So you like the burti. So there we go. I'm now satisfied. Now we know that we could sell Slovak food to the world if a French person gives it the thumbs up. Language. Let's talk about language.
All right.
Was it difficult for you to learn the language? You're a linguist. You're very educated, very cultured. Or I think maybe people just assume because people are from France, they're educated and cultured. But it might not always be the case. Have you picked up the language?
Sure have, but it's really important to mention that it was very difficult at first. The alphabet pronunciation is completely different accents, and I was not familiar with any Slavic language. So, I mean, I did speak 5 other languages, but Germanic and Latin based.
Show off.
All right. Salut, c'est Olivia.
Okay, we go. Humble brag. Isn't that what the kids call it these days?
Sono francese.
And?
And?
Your favorite expression in Slovak?
All right.
What's your go-to?
I think the thing I say the most is poprosím cappuccino s ovseným mlékom za sebou.
There you go. And now I can't really compete with that. I think I say kola zero bez aizladom prosím, but I make sure I have eyes. Aizladom. It sounds quite cool, Yes. Or kokos mlieko as well. Kokos. Coconut has a strong feature in a lot of Slovak vernacular. Did you find now that when you walk around, you integrate with Slovak people, you use the language, or do you revert to speaking English?
So first things, I always try to approach people speaking Slovak, and usually people are reacting well. Sometimes they are surprised because they would assume that I don't speak the language at all. And basically, I always try to speak in Slovak until I reach the limit of my knowledge.
And I think people are really appreciative. I've come to the understanding that people are really appreciative of those who try.
That's right.
Yeah?
Yes.
You get marks for trying. And then last thing, before we wrap up this actually very entertaining conversation, so thank you, Olivia, for bringing all this enthusiasm on the weekend. Culturally, you've traveled the country. Where are your places, the loisir that you've enjoyed the most, the destinations that you would tell the world that they need to visit in Slovakia?
This is a great question, actually. I think I'll make a couple of strong mentions. The first time I came to Slovakia, actually, was back in 2016. I was just a teenager. And at the time, I went to Ždiar and to the high Tatras and to Ždiar. And for me, it was an incredible experience because I was truly immersed into, let's say, Slovak folk culture. I saw snow for the first time, plenty of it. And the high Tatras in general, this area is gorgeous. But it's also worth to mention, if maybe you're up for a romantic getaway, Banská Štiavnica, gorgeous.
I'm never up for a romantic getaway. I've been married for 15 years.
So, come on.
Yeah, I hope that goes public. So Banská Štiavnica, one of my favorite places, and Ždiar is where we go skiing as a family. Bachletka Dolina is where we go.
Right.
So thank you very much, Olivia Blanchard. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I actually could have talked to you for a lot longer, but such is the nature of these podcasts that we have to keep them going.
That's the wrap, people.
Thank you. Now on to my second guest of today's podcast of Slovakia Untold, episode 2. And I'm delighted to be joined by Oleksandra, or if I can call you Sasha, Hordon. Sasha, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Sasha, can you tell us where you're from, how old you are, how long you've lived in Slovakia, and where you're from?
I'm from Ukraine. I'm 26, almost 27. I've been here for 8 years. I actually just recently got my permanent residence, so yay.
Whee!
And
Flags.
I'm from Odessa, Ukraine.
I love Odessa. I've been to Odessa.
Oh, great.
First thing I noticed a little bit earlier before and you work at Globesec, right?
Yes, I do.
Was that your surname doesn't sound traditionally Ukrainian. I thought that it sounded British.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me that, but there's a little backstory that my father told me about. So back in, I don't know, 13th, 14th century, there was a huge total Mongol invasion in Ukraine. And apparently people whom they captured were called Hordes or Ordoni. So my last name comes from there. So it's Hordon.
Wow, that is a seriously cool story. That's a backstory.
Yeah.
So you've lived here now 8 years?
Yes.
8 years. And you came for study and then you've chosen to make Slovakia your home.
Yes.
It's slightly different for a lot of people. I've spoken to someone who's come from French Caribbean. I'll speak to someone who's come from Morocco. These are, one might say, more exotic locations. Ukraine shares a border with Slovakia. Had you always thought that you were going to come to Slovakia?
Actually, no. When I was in high school, I studied in the US as an exchange student, and my plan was kind of to go there for college, but then prices were crazy expensive and it's too far. So I started learning Czech language, and I was thinking to go to Prague. But then somehow it just escalated and I ended up in Slovakia. I was in Banska Bystrica. I've been there for 3 years and it was great. I'm actually happy I came here. Banska Bystrica was a great student town. I experienced a lot of just really new things for me because I didn't really go abroad back then at that age. I got to travel. I did Erasmus in France, and then I had to move to Bratislava, and I'm still here.
Dobrze. I think that's how the Czechs say, yeah. Joj.
Yo.
Yeah, see, I've lived in the region long enough to pick up 2 Czech words. So Slovakia is now your home. So most of the questions I ask my other guests is that, did you ever imagine that you'd end up in Slovakia? It's less of a stretch to imagine someone who shares a border with Slovakia, and you're from Odessa and you speak English because you studied in America. What were some of the striking differences culturally between Ukraine and Slovakia?
Well, the food in the first place, even though a lot of people think that it would be the same, there are some similarities with the western part of Ukraine, but also Ukraine is so huge and we have so many different regional types of dishes and cuisine. I think when I first came here, it was very, very different because there were not so many Ukrainian or people from that region at all. It was also before the full-scale invasion, so I had to pick up Slovak very fast. And I think it was my advantage because then I could get along with Slovaks easier, faster. Unlike now, I maybe noticed that if you don't speak the language fluently, it can be difficult to enter the circles of local. So
maybe that's not such a bad thing. I stay on the outside, I guess. But you've lived the student experience here.
Yes.
You mentioned Banska Bystrica. What was that like, being a student in Banska Bystrica?
Honestly, amazing.
Was it insane?
Yeah, because I lived in the dorm. The city is small, so everything is pretty much in the walking distance. You know, some parties, classes were... it gave you a lot of freedom because you had to study many things on your own, but at the same time, it teaches you this adult life. I got my first job there. So, and then I was in this Erasmus student network, so I was hanging out a lot with Erasmus people who were coming to Banska Bystrica. I was also quite surprised, why would someone from Sardinia come to Banska Bystrica? But they loved it too.
Wow.
And and then I got to go on Erasmus as well. So it was really nice.
Do you speak French too?
Well, yeah, I'm not fluent, but actually my Erasmus in France helped me pick up more Italian than French, and because that's where I met my Italian husband.
Congratulations on marrying an Italian. Auguri.
Grazie.
Prego. See, we're such a bunch of polyglots here. I wanted to ask also, obviously we're aware of the horrible full-scale invasion of Ukraine in your home, and I'm sorry for all the hardships that are happening there. You work at Globesec, who advocate on behalf of separation of this horrible situation, or extrication from this horrible situation. Does it make it difficult to go home?
Yes.
So Slovakia is now your forever home?
Um, it is my home at the moment. I never try to think of it as a forever home because I'm still young. My husband is young, so maybe we'll go somewhere else. But as of now, it's actually a good option. Actually, a couple years ago, we decided to move to Italy, and well, forever because nothing was holding us here, and we lost it for 6 months, and we came back to Bratislava because at the moment and until now, it's just a better option. It has more to offer than.
That's super interesting to know.
Yeah.
So your husband's Italian, he works here,
Yes.
and he thinks the opportunities in Slovakia supersede the opportunities in Italy. Whereabouts in Italy is he from?
He's from the south. We lived in the north, close to Venice, in Padova, and he's in UX design, so something between IT and graphic design. And Slovakia.
That's his kind of area.
Yeah. So actually, Bratislava has
more to offer.
More work opportunities, easier to get in the field because in Italy, even though we were in the north, it still kind of works on the like contact base. If you know someone, it's much easier to get in there. And here, even though he doesn't speak Slovak, maybe just a few words, he feels absolutely fine.
Yeah, so I've been here now 8 years. I definitely don't speak Slovak. I think Luboš here can testify to that. I mumble along. He saw me yesterday buying bagels, and it was a painful experience. Just by accident, bumped into him in a shopping mall in Nivi buying bagels, as you do. Bratislava is a small place.
Yeah, sure.
It's not the kind of place you could have an affair because you get caught pretty quickly. So I was buying some bagels, and he was standing behind me and I think chirping away at my terrible Slovak. Vaklad bagely, I think I said, or something.
I'm sure you did your best.
Yeah, well, I think I probably could have gone to school and learned the language, but now I claim I'm too old, so that's okay. As a crazy student, you've traveled the country.
Yes.
So 2 questions linked to maybe your youth prior to your marriage. What is the nicest place that you visited in Slovakia that you'd recommend to the outside world? And what's your funniest Slovak story?
Well, my favorite place, actually, I love Banska Bystrica. It always brings me all the nostalgic memories. And speaking of travels, as a student, Slovakia has this amazing opportunity to travel for free because you can buy ticket trains for free as a student.
Wow.
You can add one.
Did you know that, Luboš? No, you didn't.
Yeah, this is how I traveled across the whole Slovakia. I went to the Tatras, of course, amazing place.
Now Luboš is going to enroll as a student just so that he can travel free.
I mean, I don't want to judge, but I think it's under the age of 26.
Okay.
So.
Sorry, that ship has sailed, my friend.
Mine too. So. Yeah.
So carry on. So you traveled all around the country?
Yeah. I went to Žilina, Trnava, the mountains, all the way to Košice also, and Bratislava, of course. You can add €1 if you want to have a seat on the train. Otherwise, you have like this seats-less ticket, and you might have to stand if it's too packed, but almost never happened to me.
And what's your favorite place?
If
everybody says Banska Štiavnica, but I'm sure you have.
It was lovely, but I would say it's the Tatra Mountains and Štrbské pleso. Also, I really love the Slovenský raj, Slovak Paradise, to just go climbing and feel like into the wild. And
Are you a nature lover?
I am. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not. So I appreciate the beautiful nature that is here in Slovakia.
Just to look at it.
Yeah, hiking. I think I made the mistake of taking my children up Paistun once with my dog, and they were complaining. So, and it's ironic because we're a family full of athletes, but none of us like hiking. So there you go. And then just the last one, and of course I've interviewed your boss for my other podcast, Undiplomatic, and he was a great guest, Robert Voss. I'm glad that Globsec has gone global and moved across the road to Prague. What is your craziest story in Slovakia? And is it appropriate for a podcast?
Well, I will think of appropriate stories. Actually, my craziest story, one that comes to my mind, I ended up on television, working on television. I was never even close to being on TV, but I was moderating this special project Ukrainian News on Teatri, TA3 news channel. And the way I got there is actually maybe a year before. I was invited to do this TV online program where they had foreigners taste Slovak food. And it was very experimental. I say sometimes I feel like they on purpose gave some really weird things to taste, so that, and they would expect foreigners to say like, "Oh my God, what is that? Is that Slovak?" But it was nice, and this is how I like my face stayed in the archives, and then they invited me to moderate the news, and it was very nice.
Wow, what an achievement. And I think also, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And I think that's another thing that perhaps I don't mention enough here, is that I also get lots of opportunities to do things that I probably wouldn't do if I was, before I was in the UAE, and obviously in England. You get to try things here professionally that you might not normally in your home country. And then last question, Sasha, the food. You mentioned it.
Yeah.
There's a pause.
Okay. Once a year, I get this sudden urge to have some halushki with a beer. I do that, and then I'm good for the next year.
So that's what we think about the Slovak food, but at least you're honest. It's taken a while for me to integrate that into my lifestyle. Sasha,
I mean, my husband is Italian. You have to give me that.
It must be very difficult for an Italian sitting at Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gesticulation at home, thinking
Yes.
that. So you eat mainly Italian and Ukrainian dishes at home.
Yes. Also a lot of Ukrainian.
Fabulous. Sasha Hordon from Ukraine, thank you so much for joining me on Slovakia Untold. And I love your vibrancy and your energy, and I wish you every success in your young marriage as well, going forward. And I hope to see you in the future.
Thank
you very
so
much. And my final guest on Slovakia Untold today on my podcast, I'm delighted, happy to be joined by Najat Bakkal. Najat, please, will you tell our audience where you're from, how long you lived in Slovakia, and what you do here?
Yes. Thank you for having me. I introduced myself as coming from Morocco, but like there is some story behind it. I was born in Holland. But my parents are Moroccan, and I feel very connected to Morocco. But I lived my whole life in Holland. My husband is half Slovak, half Dutch. That's why we moved here and made the decision to come here. So sometimes people ask me, like, how did you end up here? And this was 12 years ago. 2 children. We were born here in Slovakia, and we're happy so far.
And of course, you also an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You own a business here.
Yeah, very close by. So we are neighbors.
Yeah.
2016, I had my daughter. And when she was around like 3 months, I was like, okay, what should I do? Because until then I was not working. And I noticed in how do you say it, like working kind of thing, it was not very common in Slovakia for a woman to work part-time. So I decided at that point, like, okay, maybe I should do something for myself to take a little bit that control and to decide. So I started my business in 2016 in the beauty industry, which has grown now to 3 places.
So you've got three locations, one very close to me here in Tomashikova. And you've got 2 more locations. Of course, I give a little bit of context to inviting you here today. Of course, our children go to school together.
Yes.
And part of the expat community that there is here, which I was surprised to see so many people from exotic locations. Perhaps Holland is less exotic than Morocco.
Yeah, exactly.
I have also family in Rotterdam. My question to you is that when your family in Morocco and your family in Holland, before you met your husband, would ever imagine that you would end up in Slovakia?
No, for sure not. I would say that they didn't even know that where it's located. So in the beginning, when I came here, when I was saying I live in Bratislava, people would look at me like, where is that?
Yeah.
Let's grab the map.
And then have you invited them? Have they come from Morocco to stay with you?
Yeah.
And Holland?
Both. So my parents moved back to Morocco, but from Morocco I don't have so many visitors.
And what do they think when they came?
Well, they love it.
Yeah.
They love it. Like the very laid back kind of feeling about it. Safety. They feel very safe. That's one of the things, and the nature. So everybody's really happy always to come back.
So you see, that's one of the messages that everybody says, and I've been doing this for a while now, is that perhaps people don't know so much about Slovakia outside. And I don't know whether that's a communication issue, whether that's a branding issue. I'm very lucky that I partner with Slovakia Travel to try and help raise the visibility of the country outside of Slovakia as part of this commitment to English-speaking content. But more than that, me as a foreigner living here, I also, just like you, didn't know anything about Slovakia other than my Slovak wife. We met miles away in Dubai.
Yeah.
We got married in Bali. Our daughters were born in Dubai. And then I said I wanted to move to England. And she said, I don't want to live in London. It's big and scary.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want to live in Slovakia. And I said, but our children didn't really have a connection with their family here. They're Slovak. So we decided to come here as a placeholder. We didn't put a time on it, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And then I'm here now 8-9 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those places that outside the world may not know so much about it. Once you get here, it's very hard to leave.
Yeah.
Do you see it as your forever home now?
Well, I would not say forever home, but I'm the type of person to not put that label on anyways. Like you said, like we came here, and as my husband is half Dutch, so what for us is nice, we speak Dutch at home, so I feel very comfortable living here.
And it's not hard to go home. It's a couple of hours.
Exactly, and we always said to each other, like we both need to feel comfortable. If not, we always try to have this like an open communication. So we sometimes check on each other, like, are you still comfortable? And
can you give that advice to my wife?
Yeah.
I don't know the last time she checked.
Yeah,
are you
well,
okay?
Then next time I see her,
baby, are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you happy here?
Yeah.
That's a long answer.
Well, and that's why I say, like, I think so. My husband is not full Slovak, so he kind of understands that part, and that makes it very nice. But yeah, time flies, and I'm happy here. We are happy here, and I always say, as long as
the family's happy.
The family's happy, but also, like, I sometimes do have the feeling to leave. But as long as those moments are less than the moments that you want to stay, we're okay.
I think you're spot on. I actually share that opinion myself. One thing we spoke about before earlier, and you mentioned now when your family came to visit, was safety. We have young children.
Exactly. Raising children here is, I would say,
it's not bad, is it?
It's not. I would say it's ideal.
It's ideal. So I mean,
and the schools that the children.
My daughter is 13. She takes the bus on her own to gymnastics and training. I'm not sure you'd want her to do that in Rotterdam or Amsterdam. I wouldn't want her to do that in London for sure.
No, for sure not.
And here there's a level of I'm sure it wasn't the same in the 90s, but there's a level of safety here that offers people the family the opportunity to encourage independence, maybe from an earlier age that we wouldn't have normally. And that safety is a really important thing for a parent.
Yeah.
Talking about entrepreneurship and your salons, now you have 3 salons and you're a successful entrepreneur. And was it difficult setting up a business here in Slovakia at the beginning?
Yes. Why? Well, with the language and legislations, it's not
paperwork.
It's not always, and it's also not always so clear. Like
bureaucracy
bureaucracy, and some things are done in the gray zone.
Yeah,
which you kind of have to know, as if you're from here, you know that, and you kind of deal with that. But if you're not, then you're very confused. And I come, with my Dutch background, is very much organized.
Yeah.
So that's a huge difference. Like, give me a straight answer, but a lot of the times here there is no straight answer.
Yeah,
and you need to get used to that.
I think the system is also strange for me a lot of the times, invoicing and tax and stuff, and not that the process is wrong, but I think you just need to be local to understand how to navigate it. I found that difficult. Also, the registration in the offices and doing all that. I've had to take
especially the offices. For me, the offices, and because a lot of I come from a background that when it's not so logical, we try to do something about it. But here sometimes you just say, it is just like this, so just do it.
Yeah, comme il faut.
Yeah, or find a way to do it differently, and that really goes against my nature. But you have to kind of flow with it, but
navigate those choppy waters.
It is what it is, and that's how. But looking back, it went quite smooth. But as a foreigner, being an entrepreneur, everything that I do takes twice as long because I have to go through the paperwork, but I don't read the language, so it's translating, it's looking at it, not understanding. So time-wise, it's also a little bit different.
Okay, so talking a little bit about culture, your young family, you've traveled. Actually, coming back to that point about the paperwork before we've gone to that. My wife didn't like coming to all the offices with me. She's like, "I'm not your secretary. You're taking me everywhere, and I have to do everything for you." That was it. That was
well. I have to introduce her then, or not introduce. Well, they know each other, but Paul is the same.
Yeah.
I had to figure out everything myself,
Yeah.
and
I'm very lucky.
I'm happy about this at the end.
Yeah.
Like in that point, I was like, "Why are you not helping me?" But he was like, "You will learn so much more doing it by yourself."
Yeah, absolutely. That's nice, good advice. I'm not sure I'm in the business of giving my wife advice. I'd get thrown out the door if I did that. Culturally, you've traveled Slovakia, or do you stay more in Bratislava?
We didn't travel that much as we would like, but yeah, we went to different cities. We went also to the Tatras for skiing, and yeah, so I would say we would like to travel more.
And your husband's a big wine admirer.
Yeah.
What does he think of Slovak wine? What do you guys think of Slovak wine? There's a pause there.
Yeah, there's
never a good pause. Is never a good.
What we always say, like, if you want a good quality bottle of Slovak wine, price quality is very high because the produce is low. So it makes sense that it's higher. But so if you want a good quality bottle of wine, which there is, you pay so much more than if you would buy a French or Italian. So then we kind of tend to then go more towards these countries.
And the Slovak food that you like the most?
Yeah. Well, I'm a very big fan of Slovak food.
Yeah.
So my husband,
you're
my
tiny.
husband isn't. But my husband isn't. But I like it.
And what's your favorite dish?
Well, I just really kind of like simple potato salad, schnitzel, and
Rezen.
Yeah, and also the well, it's not completely, but chalamada.
Chalamada. I like the chalamada.
Yeah. So it's Hungarian.
Yeah, we got jars of that stuff.
Yeah. So that I like to keep it simple, but I at home cook Slovak with a Moroccan twist.
Look at that. Fusion.
Yeah.
Slovak Moroccan fusion.
Yeah.
I actually joke with my wife. We've got so many pickles in chalamada. My svokra, my long-suffering mother-in-law, actually I'm long-suffering, she sends us suitcases. I mean, how Central European is that?
Yeah.
Suitcases full of chalamada and uhorky.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, but I always joke that if ever Slovakia was invaded by a foreign nation, I could just throw cucumbers at them.
Yeah.
As I've got chalamada in my pantry ready as intercontinental ballistic chalamada. And language. Last question to you. What is your favorite? What is the expression that you use most in Slovak that you like on a daily basis? How is your Slovak?
My Slovak is okay. Like I'm a little bit nervous now to speak Slovak, but what I kind of use a lot, because I do have a lot of people working with me, so I have to speak Slovak. Grammar is very bad. Takže tak.
Takže tak.
It is what it is.
There you go. It is what it is. And on that note, Najat, Bakkal, from Morocco, entrepreneur, mother of two, living in Slovakia for now 12 years. Thank you very much for joining me on
Thank you for having me.
On Slovakia Untold. Najat, thanks. You have been listening to Zulf Hayat Khan on Slovakia Untold, a podcast brought to you in partnership with Slovakia Travel.